It's a pleasure to be in the company of the illustrious Padam Shri Dr. Sitanshu Yashchandra Mehta. Dr. Sitanshu is the president of the Gujarat Sahitya Academy.
That's right.
Yes.
Gujarat Sahitya Parishad.
Sahitya Parishad. And he has been the Vice Chancellor of the University of Saurashtra in Rajkot. And he's received Padam Shri as well as the Sahitya Academy Award for his collection of poems called Jatai. And he has been into translation. He did his postdoctoral study, his doctoral studies from the University of Indiana. And he has traveled across the world. And today I'm very happy, and this is just for the sake of my students, that I would like them to be introduced to this illustrious figure, Dr. Sitanshu. Sir, will you please tell my students something about yourself? How you got into literature, and the amount of work that you have done in Gujarati literature is highly commendable. And is there something that you would like to convey to the young readers of today?
The choice of subject. Now, you would imagine that I always wanted to study Gujarati literature and so on. But parents, even a person nearly 80 like me, has to have parents and has to have school years like yours. So I did quite well in my SSC and school finals and so on. So my mother wanted me to be a doctor. So I was put in science stream, and however hard I worked, I was not cut out for that. So I did my inter-science, second year of science, after which you could go to medicine. There was no way I could have gone to medicine. So my brother and so on, they wanted me to take technical education and start refrigeration and air conditioning business.
Okay.
So fortunately, my mother was supportive. And when I said that I want to go to arts, she said, okay, go to arts. I did 2 years in science, in fact, first year and second year in science, in a college, St. James College. I said, I want to go to arts. She said, go to arts. I said, I not only want to go to arts, I want to take languages. She said, okay. I said, I not only want to take languages, I want to take Gujarati language. Which is like the last thing she would have hoped for. But she was a good mother and supported me. So our students should know that whatever sort of you're inclined to, whatever that you enjoy learning, if you learnt it hard, if you learnt it with all your abilities, then there is a good future.
In this age of science, technology, engineering and management, where do you see languages, and especially regional languages? Do you see a future?
Well, your students have a great poet as her teacher. So I think they will learn directly from you without my intervention. But if my intervention is tolerated for the sake of this interview, then there is a great future for it. My own son is an IIT graduate and a PhD in computer science engineering from Georgia Tech, and is very high up in Google's. So there's a great future in technology if you are so inclined. But there's also great future in any line of work, any endeavor, any human endeavor, if you are able to put all your energies into it. So the crucial point is, everyone has enough energy. Crucial point is, are you willing to put all your energies into one endeavor?
Yes, that's true. Having translated from Gujarati to English and English to Gujarati, where do you think does Indian writing in English stand today?
There are two streams going on. Most of the writers who write in English, they cater to a foreign audience, a foreign readership. That's how they earn their name and money above all. So, what do they want? They want spicy stories about India. They want an exotic India. So most of these Indian writers in English, they produce exotica. Bombay, an exotic Bombay.
Okay.
Whatever Calcutta and exotic.
And even poverty can be an exotic.
Yeah, how correct. So poverty, riches,
Everything is on display.
on display.
Yes.
So that's how English literature in India has grown.
Okay.
Except there are exceptions, like this great Bengali writer Amitabh Ghosh. He rejected Commonwealth Prize. He said Commonwealth itself is a sham.
Yes.
How can I accept it? And he writes with such understanding of the Indian situation, and he in fact, and I like to read him.
Yes.
So there is nothing wrong with any language, whatever language you want to write it. But what are you going to write? And I think it's more natural for Indians to write in their own mother tongue.
That's true. You are a bilingual writer, and you write poetry. And as a poet, could you tell us some of the themes that move you, the images that have moved you over the years, and you have focused on them in your poetry?
In our Indian tradition of poetry, poetry is seen as a kind of knowledge. So, and there's a natural tendency in everyone to know. Knowledge is not panditai, it's not pandit. Knowledge is curiosity. So my poetry is connected with this curiosity to know. So earliest poems are surrealistic because in the sort of early kind of early years, early youth, one is very curious about one's body. What's happening? Tremendous things happen to the body and the libido and the urges, and they are best explored in a Freudian way by the surrealists of France, André Breton, Tristan Tzara, and in painting, Salvador Dali, and so on. So the earliest inquiries were all in epistemological inquiries, so to say, but through images. And later on, there is a collective political unconscious. So as I sort of, decade after decade, I try to understand what's happening around me. First, what's happening inside me, then what's happening around me. And that's a political unconscious. So my second collection, Jatayu, it starts this political investigation. And then in the third collection, it's called Vakhar. So in Vakhar is strong. There are poems on Ho Chi Minh, Che Guevara, Ibrahim Rugova, and so on. So all the political economic forces around us. And the last collection, which has come out only just a few days back, it's called Mahabhoj. So it describes this whole world like a great feast.
Okay.
But the whole world, Sacharacha, eats itself.
There is a novel written by Mannu Bhandari.
Mahabhoj, of course, Mahabhoj is there.
Yes.
But this word has been taken in a different context from Gujarati tradition.
Okay.
So where it says that Maya is first a mother and then she becomes a wife. A 16th century Gnani poet, Akho, the Gnanamarg poet, he says that this word, it gives you birth and then it is eaten up by you. And then, then it eats you up.
Eats you up, yes.
And then so this whole circle of this life and death is seen not in a very Bairagi way, but in a very Anuragi way.
Good.
So this is how exploration for knowledge.
Brilliant. I just wanted to know, have you ever thought of writing your autobiography? Because your life must be rich with multiple experiences, with the variety of people that you've met and the places that you've been to and your own life. Have you ever thought of coming up with an autobiography?
I tried my hardest best not to fall in love with myself.
Great.
And autobiography is a good way of falling in love with yourself. So it's best to look at others because your life is good, but life all around you is magnificent.
That's true. Is there any major influence in your life, something that has, a turning point in your life which actually compelled you to write more? Or to pick up your
When I was
pen?
6, my father died.
Okay.
And he was also just 52. And my mother was 42. So my first poem, I've never put it, but my first expression was a quarrel with my father for dying so early. So, and then the first, so my mother, the courage of my mother also inspired me.
It's such a pleasure meeting you, and it's an honor to be in your company. And I have always seen you as an inspiration, sir. And is there a message that you'd like to give to the present generation?
Read this poet who is seated next